We're getting some information slowly trickling in. Of course, the worst possible news that one person has been confirmed dead. Now, we also know that 25 homes in total were affected. Now, that's how powerful this house explosion was. We know that at least one was completely leveled. It's an explosion that was felt here. I mean, we're several blocks away from where it actually happened. People say that debris came flying into even the nail salon that they were getting their nails done just a couple blocks away as well. Just have a listen to their on-the-ground account.
We were talking and all of a sudden this huge explosion, and then there was like some debris that came flying in their back door a bit. It sounded like a huge clap of thunder because the ceiling like went up and down, and I was freaking out.
I live like by Tompkin and Bloor. That's like good 3-4 kilometers away from here, and we felt all the windows of the building shiver, and like we felt the explosion.
Now, I just want to bring in Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie here. What is it that you wanted to get out there? Because now we have about 50 to 100 people that were displaced from their homes, also evacuated from the plaza here. So what did they need to know? What to do next?
Well, certainly the situation is still being investigated. We've met with the residents who have been moved down to the end of their street. We've asked them to be calm. It's likely they won't be returning to their homes anytime soon. So we're preparing Burnham Thorpe Community Centre for them as a place to go and seek refuge in the short term, and until we know better.
Of course. And do you have any sort of update? Who have you been talking to so far?
Certainly. I was on the scene with Fire Chief Tim Beckett. He'll be here shortly to do a media scrum as well. And we met with the residents. All first responders are on site, brave men and women that are there, and the area is all completely taped off. So we weren't able to go anywhere near the site. There's still a smell of gas leaking. EnerSource and Enbridge are both on site. So everything is still being investigated. We've just asked residents to move to safer ground, and very soon we'll probably open up a variety of community centers for them to be able to seek refuge.
And you too, as well as the media here, you've been talking to some of the people in the area. I mean, what are their concerns?
Well, they're concerned for their safety. They're concerned about the loss of their property. We have one unconfirmed that has fatality, but so far that's all we have, one unconfirmed fatality. I'm praying to God tonight that everyone was at work, and it'll just be property damage. I'm praying.
Okay, thank you so much, Mayor Bonnie Crombie of Mississauga. Right now,
reduced to sticks, one home completely leveled, and the neighbors with gaping damage. After the ground-shaking bang, people came running from the scene.
The first guy that I saw, he was wearing both sandals, and both his feet were cut, and they're bleeding like crazy.
The massive house explosion filled the sky with thick smoke.
We felt all the windows of the building shiver.
I was just sitting down, then the light started flickering, and I felt the building shake.
About 50 to 100 people evacuated the area, running through fumes of natural gas. The media and onlookers were kept a safe distance away, while dozens of firefighters secured the perimeter. Images of the obliterated homes quickly circulated online.
I'm praying to God tonight that everyone was at work, and it'll just be property damage. I'm praying.
I can confirm that there was one victim located at the scene. 9 other people were assisted, and none of them were transported to the hospital.
No identity yet, and no word if he or she was in the house that exploded. 9 people were treated for injuries ranging from minor to serious.
We have police, we have paramedics, we have fire on scene that are dealing with the issue in the hot zone.
The number of injured or dead could increase once officers sift through the debris, but that will take a long time.
If you're going to ask me what the cause of this is right now, that is far too early right now to even speculate.
As the sun goes down, the stabilizing has been of people's nerves. This explosion was so huge that as many as 24 other homes sustained damage, and many others had their gas shut off. So, Peter, a lot of people won't be sleeping at home tonight.
All right, Allie, thank you.
Covering breaking news is really not my thing. There are a lot of excellent YouTube channels out there doing a great job reporting on such events. However, when I saw this headline today in the CBC News, it really hit home for me. I am a resident or a native of Toronto, Canada, or as we say, Toronto. And this particular event took place in Mississauga just yesterday on June the 29th. And again, this is really hitting home for me. And as I read this article, I got to tell you, it really, really screamed to me false flag event. and that this is going to be used to blame Christians, okay? And the headline reads, "Police gather disturbing letters found near where house exploded." Again, this is from the CBC News, probably the biggest news media agency in Canada for that matter. The subtitle of the article reads, "House looked vacant for at least 2 months and had tinfoil on the windows," a resident says. So for the past 2 months, this house was vacant. It had tinfoil on the windows. That already screams, false flag to me, but I'll talk about that a little bit. This is from, here we go, June the 29th. This is a very breaking news story. Here you can see an aerial shot of the house that exploded, which I believe was here, and the other houses that were affected, in the area. But, this again to me is just screaming a false flag, and I will, tell you my reasons in just a little bit. Okay, it says 2 homes on either side of the blast house will have to be torn down, says Mississauga Fire Chief Tim Beckett. And the article goes on to read, "Police are trying to find out who wrote letters found by neighbors near the scene of a fatal house explosion in Mississauga, Ontario this week. Neighbors say the letters are disturbing. The explosion on Hickory Drive killed a woman, injured several people, and damaged 25 homes in a residential area about 30 kilometers west of Toronto. Fire officials are not speculating on what may have caused the explosion, but Ontario's fire marshal is investigating." Now, to me already, the fact that this explosion damaged not only the house itself, but 25 other homes in the area, I mean, that is quite a bomb. That is quite the explosion that happened, okay? So I don't believe this is the work of an amateur. I believe this could possibly be the work of a professional who knows what he or she is doing. Some residents told CBC News they found notes among piles of household items, building materials, and other debris. The notes were handed over to police. It's not known whether the notes came from the house that exploded. Already. Something that's really ringing, as false flag in my mind, because how is it that all of a sudden, conveniently, these notes have been found? Will there be so much of debris? I mean, you could see what the explosion looked like. How do you all of a sudden find, notes just that conveniently, shortly after? Most people wouldn't even want to be away, or, would want to be away from this area. So, again, how are these things being found just so conveniently? Sergeant Josh Colley, Public Information Supervisor for Peel Regional Police, said Wednesday that police are treating the notes as evidence. "There's nothing to connect it to the actual house," he said. "As you are aware, there are a lot of damaged homes, so we're working on connecting it to wherever it belongs. We're not specifying what's on the paper, what the documents are. We're just asking if you do find something, then turn them over." He said there is no indication that the incident is criminal, and homicide investigators have not been called in. Okay, then this is, I guess, a picture from another house in the area. Carrie Graham allowed a reporter into her home on Dixie Road to show the damage caused by the explosion. A mirror on the wall fell and shattered, which I guess is this right here. Here's the mirror. I guess it was on the wall up here, and this fell and shattered, and I believe that house was, quite a distance away from the explosion. He said there is no... read that. Residents who read the notes told CBC News the wording is apologetic in tone. So this is from the letters they saw. They say the writer describes as being in pain, asks God for help, and according to at least 2 different residents, requests forgiveness for the writer's future action. Okay, so, basically showing that the writer is going to do something in the future that's going to be obviously bad. They were apologizing for what they were about to do and said, "Dear Jesus, please forgive me," said Rhonda, who found a shopping bag full of letters in her yard and admits they may have no bearing on the investigation. She would only give her first name. One of the letters a neighbor showed to CBC News was addressed to God and mentioned health problems suffered by both the writer and the writer's husband. It also made reference to the writer's faith in God. "Why are we still here, God?" the letter asks. A second letter shown to CBC News also mentions health challenges and includes an apology for the writer's inability to keep up with home maintenance and cleaning. "I trust God to look after me and my husband to take us home," the writer says. Okay, and then the article goes on to talk about, eyewitness accounts, this Anna Willanen and all that kind of stuff, shows different pictures, of the place, talking about how, some a lot of residents are, some are allowed back home, some are not. And then the police said, "We would like to thank the affected members of our community for their patience in this matter, and we ask for further patience from community members who will not be able to access their homes this evening," blah, 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 as the police said. But, let me tell you, as I read this article, okay, again, like I said at the beginning of this video, that This to me screams false flag event. How is it that conveniently a bag of letters, okay, a nice, full bag of letters, this person says, found in a shopping bag full of letters in her yard, all of a sudden, just so conveniently, just happens to show up. Okay, so that tells me that this was possibly done, or this shopping bag of letters was placed after the event, okay, possibly by, who are the real perpetrators of this, so-called accident, or, they're saying it's not a criminal thing right now, at least that's what they're saying. I find it really interesting that, again, in the headline, it says that this house was vacant for at least 2 months and had tinfoil on the windows. So what is up with that? The fact that it's vacant for 2 months, okay, the fact that tinfoil were on the windows, obviously whoever did this did not want people to know what was going on. They didn't want people being able to see inside that house. That means that anybody could have been inside that house. I know that lots of times ISIS, takes credit for things like this, but I don't believe it's even that. Maybe possibly that may come out saying, oh, this was ISIS that did this. I have a strong feeling that this was definitely a professional that did this. The fact that the blast affected 25 homes in the area, the fact that you saw from the clips before, earlier in this video saying that people felt this, 4 to 5 kilometers away, from where the blast took place. Okay, so the fact that this house was vacant for 2 months, I wouldn't be surprised if whoever these professionals are, maybe possibly, government was involved with this, because we know that many false flags attacks are taking place all over the place. In fact, they're ramping up like crazy. But the fact that the house was, basically vacant for 2 months, tinfoil on the windows, nobody could see what was going on in there. To me, the fact that 25 homes in the area were affected and damaged, I mean, that to me screams of a professional bomb or some kind of crazy explosion that happened. I don't think a gas leak would damage 25 other homes in the area. And the fact that people many kilometers away also felt, the effects of that explosion. People said that they saw their ceilings shrieking and caving. And again, this is 4 kilometers away from the actual blast. So to me, again, this is screaming of a professional that was doing this. The fact that the house, again, was under, tinfoil and vacant for 2 months so people couldn't see what was going on in that place. It could have been anybody that was in that house doing something, whether it was, these people by the establishment that are used by the establishment or funded by the establishment to create chaos, to create false flags. They could have been the ones inside that place, making this bomb, being given the materials to do this. The fact that this bag of letters, was found conveniently, a shopping bag full of these letters. The fact that they're mentioning, God, okay, that they're talking, saying, dear Jesus, please forgive me for their future actions. They're asking God for the help. They're in a lot of pain. They're saying, why are we still here, God? Then the letters are saying, I trust God to look after me and my husband to take us home. Okay, so this to me is framing Christians, or could possibly be used in framing Christians, framing the church, framing, the body of Christ, using this to blame religion, to blame people of faith, that, people of faith are unstable, that, whether you're Islamic, whether you're even now Christian, it seems like they love to point the finger at Christians these days. And I'm going to show you another article where they did the same thing, where they pointed the finger at Christians, even though it was done, or at least the media says that it was done by someone else. But I find interesting that here these letters are pointing to someone that claimed to know God, claimed to be talking to Jesus, that was asking his forgiveness, that, that they were about to do something, and they're basically saying that they can't handle it anymore, but they are talking about God. So is this a way to blame Christians, to frame the church, to frame people of faith, and saying that they're unstable, and saying that we can't trust them, and saying that, people of faith are everywhere. We just never know when the next attack is going to take place. I believe they may have even said that down here, or maybe it's in another article that I'm going to show you, that, people are going to be scared of possibly anyone who claims to be a Christian, who claims to be a person of faith. That's what I believe this is coming to. Okay, because many of you will remember that when the Orlando shooting took place a few weeks ago, okay, an ACLU attorney blames Christians for Orlando jihad attack. This is from Breitbart. I'll show you another article as well. So American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU attorney, Chase Strangio, took to Twitter to castigate Christians for the shooting massacre by jihadist Omar Mateen at a gay nightclub in Florida, in Orlando, Florida. And he tweets, what is gross, your thoughts and prayers and Islamophobia after you created this anti-queer climate. Okay, so you can see, what this guy is saying. I spend my life fighting Christian homophobia while being loved and supported by my Muslim family. I'm not going to talk, mention the language that he's saying here. Okay, so a stranger also attacked the Christian right for legislation which he termed anti-LGBT bills that seek to protect the conscience rights of individuals and business owners. Okay, so this wasn't just the only article that spoke about this. Apparently even the Catholic News Agency reported that ACLU member Eunice Rowe assailed Republican lawmakers for offering prayers for the victims and wounded after the shooting. Rowe said they were promoting the extreme anti-LGBT First Amendment Defense Act. Okay, so really we can see what is going on. Even Planned Parenthood is coming and showing solidarity, for the victims, which I really wouldn't, take any comfort in Planned Parenthood coming to say something. They have no problems killing babies and taking the parts, but they want to come and claim solidarity for a terrorist attack, where people are getting blown to bits. So I find that kind of, ironic, really. Then a good article from CBN News. ACL lawyers blame Christians for Orlando shooting. Now, according to the mainstream media, it was ISIS took credit for this. This Omar Mateen supposedly or allegedly claimed allegiance to ISIS. Okay, so this is what I find really interesting that this article said. Okay, it says, however, Christian leaders around the country rejected the arguments of the ACLU attorneys. They say that even though they do not support gay marriage, they advocate for the dignity of every human life, regardless of a person's sexual orientation. And I agree with that. Even though people can be in sin, heterosexual people also sin. Sleeping with a person outside of marriage is a sin according to the Bible. Okay, so heterosexuals, homosexuals, we all have sin. Nobody, should be, treated in this way and have a violent death or have something horrible like this happen to them. Okay, they say it's incorrect to declare that policies that prevent a person from having to participate in a same-sex wedding are somehow connected to the terrorist attack in Orlando. Christians who have resisted the redefinition of marriage and who now want to be free to live what their faith teaches them is the truth about marriage do not hate anyone, and legislation to protect their freedom is not anti-LGBT, except in the minds of the intolerant enforcers of coerced conformity. Matthew Frank, director of the William E. and Carol G. Simon Center on Religion and the Constitution at the Witherspoon Institute, told CNA. Okay, the worst response to an atrocity is to take it as a validation of one's own political passions and an excuse to demonize one's political opponents, Frank said. Sadly, this is what some representatives of the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, have done. Okay, so in wake of the horror in Orlando, the temptation to demonize any group making arguments for its right in the public square, LGBT, Christian or Muslim, should be steadfastly resisted by all people of decency. Okay, so, I fully agree with what this person is saying, and the fact that, just because Christians are against, don't agree with the homosexual lifestyle, doesn't mean that Christians would advocate, homosexuals being brutally murdered and slaughtered in this kind of way. We do not agree with their lifestyle, but we still love them. We want Christ to impact their lives and to change them and realize that they need to come out of that kind of lifestyle. But no way would a true Christian ever advocate homosexuals being gunned down in that way. Okay, and what I find real interesting is that, these things are being used to say that, we just never know when the next one's going to take place. People of faith are crazy, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Christian, who knows. It seems like religions are getting demonized almost every day, especially Christianity. Even though Islam or ISIS seems to take the credit for many of these things, now they're finding ways to blame Christians. They're turning it around and turning it against Christians. Okay, so, we all remember the Brussels attack, but, interestingly enough, just on the same day on June 29th, another attack took place in Turkey, in Istanbul, okay, where in an airport, there was explosions that went on, and, the crazy thing is that, when I looked at footage from other truthers on YouTube, I find that, there are great channels out there that really expose a lot of these false flag attacks. Some channels that come to mind are Russian Vids and ODD TV, or even Truth Media Revolution, or TMR as he likes to go by. I really recommend their channels as they're excellent at exposing these false flag events. Okay, so sadly there were, bombs that went off in this airport in Istanbul. But what I find real interesting is at the bottom, it says many of the sources were speaking to believe this mirroring is international. In this way, the attackers place Turkey, a Muslim majority country, along the same continuum as Brussels and Paris, and God forbid, wherever they target next. So that screams to me that, they want to show people, they want to telegraph into people's minds that these terrorists, they can strike anywhere. We never know when the next one is going to be. you know, we're going to need police state, we're going to need martial law, we're going to need security, we're going to need safety. You know, we got to set up all these things. We got to like get more, you know, people involved in this. We got to like, you know, take away people's securities and make them rely on you know, what the establishment thinks is best. I believe the 11-11-11 problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic is definitely going on here, where the establishment is causing the terror, okay, and the fact that the reaction of the people is just terror and panic and, you know, all this kind of thing. And now they're trying to tell people that you just never know, God forbid, wherever they target next. Where is the next? You just never know where the next one is going to be. So I believe that people of faith are being targeted here or being used as a scapegoat. They're going to label, I think, anyone of faith, especially Christians. I believe it's coming down to that, where, you know, Christians are going to be labeled as a terrorist. It's not even going to be about Islamic terrorism anymore. They're just going to blame religion in general. They want to plant it in your head that, you know, this can happen at any time, anywhere. We just never know. Of course, we remember the Brussels attacks and what happened there. Okay, again on March 22, good old 322, Skull and Bones number, also right in the, I believe, at the beginning of their feast of Beltane, which requires blood sacrifice. Okay, so the casualties, you know, included people of many different races: Belgium, Colombia, Peru, France, Germany, Britain, Hungary, Portugal, Romania, Spain, and the U.S. Okay, so many things, you know, took place that day. Many deaths, sadly, you know, even though many deaths took place. You know, the sad fact is that a lot of these things are false flags. You know, there's crisis actors involved. Again, people like Russian Vids or TMR or ODD TV are excellent at showing, you know, the fact that many of these people there are crisis actors. You know, they're being made up with bandages and blood and all this kind of stuff, and it's not even real. Okay, of course, remember the Paris attacks also, you know, that took place not that long ago. So again, I believe many false flags are being, you know, put in our face now. It is happening very regularly. It's happening, it seems like almost every month now. Something big is taking place. Of course, not that long before that was Charlie Hebdo, you know, again in Paris, you know, not that, I believe was earlier that year. So the Paris attacks took place last November. Charlie Hebdo was in January of that year. Of course, everyone remembers the Boston bombings that took place. Okay, again, you know, false flag, I believe that happened, even though sadly that people, innocent people, get caught in the crossfire and they die as a result of it. But all the crisis actors are definitely there. People are definitely being hurt, but at the same time, there are people that are just actors and that are being paid by the establishment to cause the craziness, to cause the terror, to cause the fear, the panic, so that people scream to the government to help us, to save us, you know, to take away our securities and help us. And of course, I believe the mother lode, or the big kickstart for all the false flags, you know, to me goes right back to 9/11. You know, if you look into it, you know, the official story to me is totally bogus. I believe it was definitely an inside job, again, by the establishment, so that they can get the, you know, cogs going to get their New World Order in gear. I believe 9/11 was the kickstart to the New World Order coming. And so, you know, what is going on here? The fact that, you know, Christians, to me, are being shown as possibly the perpetrators with these letters in this house in Mississauga. The fact that they're talking about God, they're talking about, "Dear Jesus, please forgive me." They're asking, you know, "Why are we still here, God?" They're saying, "I trust God to look after me." But then, you know, and the funny thing is how this, you know, this shopping bag of letters conveniently appears, you know, in some person's neighborhood or some person's backyard, I believe. Then, you know, Christians again being blamed for the Orlando attack, even though the mainstream media showed that it was, you know, Islamic terrorism. The fact that lawyers are blaming Christians, you know, the fact that many false flags are taking place, and they want us to believe that it can happen anywhere, you know, God forbid it can happen anywhere. Okay, so we can see this is almost false flags and terrorism seem to be happening on a regular basis, whether it's Paris, whether it's Istanbul, Turkey, whether it's Brussels, whether it's, you know, the USA, whether it's Boston, whether it's 9/11 from New York City. And now even Canada. So even Canada, I believe, is about to experience tons of false flag events. I believe this one that happened in Mississauga just yesterday is possibly only the beginning. And we can always bring it back to Scripture, because 1 Thessalonians 5 says, right from verse 1, "But concerning times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I should write to you, for you yourselves know perfectly well that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that this day should not overtake you as a thief." I believe this is clearly showing that before the day of the Lord, there's going to be great tribulations. Obviously there's going to be an unbelievable tribulation. The great tribulation will happen, after the church has taken the true bride of Christ. But even before that, I believe that Christians are going to have tribulations. We're going to have hardship. We're going to have sorrow. We're going to go through crazy things. Even in Matthew 24, Jesus says that himself. He says, to take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying that I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Okay, so that is definitely taking place. Wars that are being waged all over the place. Okay, and I believe many of them are just rumors or just false flags, yet again, just to cause their terrorism. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines. Okay, pestilences, earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. And I believe we are witnessing that very thing. We are hearing of wars and rumors of wars. Okay, we're seeing false Christs everywhere with all these false gospels, prosperity gospels, feel-good gospels, entertainment gospels, all these things that are taking place. Okay, we see that fake wars are being waged all over the place, just for money and power and, by the establishment. Nation rising against nation, kingdom against kingdom, which I believe is God's kingdom versus the devil's kingdom that is really rising in this time. Okay, we are seeing famines all over the place, pestilences, diseases, earthquakes are happening all over the place. Okay, and definitely this tribulation for Christians, this persecution of Christians is definitely coming, I believe, with all these false flags that seem to be geared towards blaming Christians. I believe this in Canada alone, apart from other places in the USA or France or Europe or other places, I believe that, this is all boiling down to the fact that Christians are going to get blamed. The church is being framed. I believe that, we as Christians need to stand strong now. I believe it's going to come down to the point where you are going to have to take a stand. Okay, you are going to have to declare without any shadow of doubt that you belong to Yeshua, Jesus, or you are not part of the kingdom. Because it is going to come down to the fact where a religion is going to be blamed for all things. I believe that is being made clear. I believe that, people are going to hate us because we stand for Jesus, because we stand for the truth. It seems like in this day and age that the moment you speak about truth, the moment you talk or question anything that the government does, that you question even things that the mainstream church does, they just do not want to have that. When you question what mainstream science tells us, when we question what mainstream media tells us, when we question what mainstream churches are telling us, that is when we get into trouble. Many pastors don't like to be questioned. Many government officials don't like to be questioned. Teachers don't like to be questioned. Scientists don't like to be questioned. So I believe that we are really seeing, not even just the beginning, but we're getting close to the fact that all our persecution is coming. And, false flags are being done on a regular basis, it seems. And this seems to be almost, like I said, a regular thing, whether it's Belgium, whether it's Paris, whether it's New York City, whether now even Canada, whether it's places in the Middle East and Syria and in Turkey. These false flag events seem to be becoming a regular thing. And it's confirming exactly what Christ told us, that we will be hated for his name's sake because we question things. When we question is when we get into trouble. The government does not want us to question. And in the clip you're going to see in a little while, basically FEMA camps are being set up everywhere. And I believe it's coming down to the point that if we start questioning the government, we are going to be accused as haters, as terrorists, as people that are dangerous because we question things, because we are people of faith, especially the church. True Christians who rise up and take a stand for Yeshua and say that he is the only way, or say that homosexuality is wrong, or say that abortion is wrong, or say that same-sex marriage is wrong, or say that, all kinds of other things, all kinds of other lifestyles, or say that the solar system or what we've been taught about our earth is wrong. If we question these things, whatever the government tells us, whatever mainstream media tells us, whatever mainstream science tells us, whatever the mainstream education system tells us, whatever even the mainstream church tells us, if we question these things, it seems like we are going to get into a lot of trouble. They're wanting to bring all this, peace and safety, which is not going to be peace and safety. It's going to end up bringing more tribulation. All these attacks, the moment we question the reasons behind this, we are getting in trouble, whether it's Charlie Hebdo, Paris attacks, Brussels attacks, things that happened in Turkey, in Orlando, now in Canada. I believe that this is happening on a regular basis. So when it comes down to it, will you be ready to take that stand? Because I believe it is going to come to just that. We are going to have to take a stand for Yeshua very soon. We've had it easy for a long time, but I believe that time of ease is rapidly coming to an end. This world is changing with each passing day. Are you ready to take a stand for Yeshua, to stand for his word, to stand on his word? Because if we stand on Yeshua, if we stand on the foundation of the word of God, we cannot be shaken. The word of God is our rock. We cannot be shaken. So I encourage you, be ready to take that stand. We need to be vigilant. We need to be alert. We need to have our spiritual eyes and ears open. We need to hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches, that is saying to God's people. And we need to be ready to take a stand when that time comes. God bless you.
There are more and more attempts to legitimize the use of internment camps to detain U.S. citizens in the event of unrest. We watch our leaders in Washington slowly pass bills that label ordinary Americans as thought criminals and potential domestic terrorists for simply questioning the actions of their government. We see third-party candidates and their impassioned supporters listed in secret government reports that call their allegiance into question and brand them as fanatics and extremists. FBI and Homeland Security documents classify homeschoolers, gun rights activists, some veterans, and anti-abortionists as threats against the existing social and political order, by default creating an entire nation of radicals and revolutionaries where everyone is a suspect, equally guilty until proven otherwise. And what is the solution to deal with these people? The same way as every other totalitarian regime throughout history: marginalize their activities, then lock them up. Prisons are being built, internment camps constructed, and laws passed that deal severely with anyone who dares to step out of line or ask too many questions. There are approximately over 600 prison camps in the U.S., all fully operational and ready to receive prisoners. They are all staffed and even surrounded by full-time guards, but they are all empty. These camps are to be operated by FEMA should martial law need to be implemented in the United States. The camps all have railroad facilities, as well as roads leading to and from the detention facilities. Many also have an airport nearby. The majority of the camps can house a population of 20,000 prisoners. Currently, the largest of these facilities is just outside Fairbanks, Alaska. The Alaskan facility is a massive mental health camp and can hold approximately 2 million people. One possible FEMA camp has been rumored for years to be at an Amtrak train repair center located in Beech Grove, Indiana. While stories and web videos have attempted to report suspicious activities, the conclusion, when honestly investigated, is that there really is not any internment camp there. Approximately 600 employees work there daily. We uncovered no unusual buildings, equipment, or personnel. Having said that, there are many well-documented camps and prisons that have sprung up around the United States the past decade or so.